I'm Dr. George Flynn. Welcome to part 2 of life lessons. These are things that once you learn them, you say, oh my gosh, I wish I'd learned that a long time ago. These are life lessons. You can learn them at any age. You may have learned a lot of them, but if you'd like to listen, this is going to be a podcast, a TV show, video, and it will be a book also. So I want you to think about the life lessons that you may have learned and you may not have learned. So I've done extensive research to find the life lessons that most people say, I wish I'd known that. And to review, in part 1, we talked about following your dreams, but your dreams may change. And if you didn't see part 1, you can go back and watch it. We'll show you how to get there. The other one, next one was learn. Don't just get an education where you get credits, you pass the test. Learn something that will help you in life, help you live life to the fullest, live life more abundantly. And one other thing is learn from your mistakes, especially. You know, we talked about learn from your own mistakes and learn from mistakes of others, because you won't live long enough to make them all yourself. That was the little anecdote that was in there. Kindness. Kindness, if you're right, be kind to those that you're trying to explain that they're not exactly correct. Just do it in a kind manner. And family is so important. Family is almost everything. Your kids, remember the time you spend with them, not the things that you give them. So we'll go on to a few other things. That's a wrap-up of the first in the series. The second in the series here is your friends. Your friends who you went to school with, who you had early childhood memories of. Your friends who you went to secondary school with, who you know, on the job. Who do you hang out with? What do you do? And I'm saying be very, very careful and selective about your friends. You know, it's been said that if you take your five friends, whether they're close friends or distant friends, 5 friends, average their income of these 5 people that you're associated with a lot, and you will have your income. Average their income, take all of their incomes, like, you know, whatever it is, and add them all up and divide by however many people it is, usually about 4 or 5, and that will be your income. Isn't that strange? So I'm saying be very careful about picking your friends, because who your friends are can change your life. If you don't want to smoke and you're around friends that smoke all the time, you'll be smoking. If you don't want to drink and you're around people in a bar that drink all the time, you'll be drinking. And why, you say? Well, that's friends rub off on you and you rub off on friends. So be very careful, and tell your friends to be very careful. They're your close friends. And your kids to be careful about who they associate with, especially their very close friends, because they'll wind up doing the same things that their very close friends do. Be responsible. That's right. Be responsible, because if you do something and it's wrong, try to make it right. Don't run away from it. Be responsible. Be a responsible person. And like if you have a car wreck, we'll just take that for example. Stay there. Don't do a hit and run. Don't leave the scene of an accident. It's an accident. Leaving the scene of the accident is the problem. But what I'm saying for you is be responsible. And it's been said that what you do when nobody's looking, when nobody's watching you. That's your character. When nobody's watching you, do you just roll down the window and take a piece of trash and throw it out? That's your character. Where if 5 people were in the car or 4 people were in the car, you would never do that. But what if you're alone? Would you throw the trash out the window? Now that's a trivial example, but what would you do if nobody were watching? Would you take the grocery cart back to the store, or would you leave it out in the parking lot? What is your code of authentic action for yourself with no one watching? That's a real question. Value right things. You know, there's things that are right and things that are wrong. If you'll value the right things and devalue the wrong things, you'll be better off. General Norman Schwarzkopf, one of my big heroes, said, everyone knows the right thing to do. And if you'll check with your own self, you know the right thing to do. He said, the hard part is doing it. But everybody knows what the right thing to do is. But the hard part is doing it. And I'm asking you to think about doing the hard part, because you already know what's right and wrong. You know the basic difference in right and wrong. And you ask yourself, if what I'm planning to do, is this right or wrong? In the eyes of man, in the eyes of God, in the eyes of whoever, but what about in the eyes of yourself also? What's right and what's wrong? I'm saying do the right thing, even though it's hard to do. Do the right thing, and you will thank yourself for it. Another idea is think before you speak. A lot of people get in trouble. They have the old saying is, they have their mouth in gear before their mind's engaged. Think before you speak. Make sure it's appropriate to the conversation. Make sure it adds to the conversation and doesn't just throw in a monkey wrench into the gears of the conversation and stop it. We all have a problem like that. The main thing, if we can say there's a main thing about it, is to minimize speaking without thinking. Minimize it. If you're not thinking of anything, don't say anything. But if you're thinking through and adding to the conversation or adding to something, think before you speak. Make sure you think about, well, what's going to happen here? What's going to happen as a consequence of what I say? Now, there are a lot of different people. There are visual people, auditory people, and kinesthetic people, or people that operate on feelings. Visual people tend to see things in pictures, and the pictures go rapidly. They talk very fast. Audible people, they hear things, they listen to them, and they talk kind of slow and metered so that they can, hear the words. Now, the kinesthetic people, they feel. So they'll say something, then they'll stop. They'll see, does that feel right? What I'm saying, does it feel right to me? They have to evaluate it. So the visual person who's talking very fast will get frustrated with the kinesthetic person who's talking very slow, and it's just hard for them to communicate. So what I'm saying to you is find out who you're talking to and think before you speak. Now you say, well, how can I know whether they're visual, auditory, or kinesthetic? Well, you might hear something in their language. They might say, how is this? Well, it seems all right. I can see it happening. That's visual. Or if they say, I hear what you say. It sounds good to me. You hear and sound? That's auditory. And what about kinesthetic? It just doesn't feel right. Something doesn't feel right about this. And that's kinesthetic. So you can tell who you're communicating with, and all you've got to do is know how they're thinking, whether they're thinking with their feelings or their hearing or their sight. Then you can understand how to communicate with them. And think before you speak. Always do that. One other idea is to listen actively. And by listening actively, it means you hear what they're saying, because most people in a conversation are talking in their head. They're saying, okay, they're probably going to say this, and I'm going to say this afterwards, and then and they get really far ahead in the conversation. But what you want to do is make sure you're listening to exactly what they're saying and talk to them in the moment. That's right. Whatever's going on in the moment, it will be a much clearer communication. Don't talk to them as if you've already talked and you've thought about 3 or 4 things and you're, 3 minutes in the future. If you say something that 3 minutes in the future, it'll disconnect. They won't understand what you're talking about. And they'll think you haven't listened to them because you haven't. You haven't listened to them. You have decided what you're going to say. And let's get honest. If I'm honest with you, that's a lead in. Honesty. Value honesty. If you're honest, you don't have to worry about lying and covering up a lie with another lie. You're just honest. Now, you don't have to be so honest that you offend people. They say, if somebody says to you, how do I look today? You don't have to say, you look terrible. You just have to be gentle. Remember, we talked about being gentle and kind. Say, look like you're improving. Or you can say something, a kind, positive word, rather than being honest of what you think. There are 2 things you can be. You can be, you can say, you look like a breath of spring. Or, at the same time period, you look like you're at the end of a long, hard, cold winter. Now, long, hard, cold winter leads you into spring. Or you can be like, you look like a breath of spring. It's just the same time period you're describing, but you're just putting it in a little bit more pleasant term to the person. You want to make sure you're being a positive, pleasant person rather than listening and deciding, oh, I don't like that, or, I can be this way. Or you're just being honest. But you're being honest with kindness. One last thing here, be yourself. Other people are being themselves. Don't try to be someone else. They've already got that position. Your position is to be you, not them. They've got their position. They're working hard at their position. Go ahead and work hard at your position. Be yourself. And, there's a song, don't go changing just to please me. Don't change to be accepted. Be yourself. There are plenty of people in the world that will accept and are looking for you. They're accepting people just like you with characteristics just like you. So make sure you be yourself at all times. Don't try to be someone else because that is not fair to you or them. I'm Dr. George Flynn.